What's up, everyone? Welcome to our review of The Mandalorian, Episode 3. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and YouTube. This review will be mostly spoiler content, so this is your friendly warning to abort this mission if you want to remain spoiler-free. And today I'm joined by John.
Yes.
And we're in... Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Rise. John over here and myself will be going over our thoughts of the Mandalorian review. All right. So just a brief summary of everything that has happened so far.
But Chris, I need you to be forewarned. I need you to make this as intricate as possible. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay.
Wait, what's my motivation?
Because I told you to.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, here's a brief summary of the episode. Mando delivers baby.
Yes.
Mando feels sad.
Yes.
Mando gets big payout.
Yes.
The guild gets a big payout. Big Mando, who can fly, gets jealous, but this is the way.
Yes.
Mando re-kidnaps baby and puts him in harm's way.
Yes.
Mando shoots Apollo Creed and flies away.
I think that was pretty intricate.
Yeah.
Pretty difficult to follow.
Yeah. So basically, that's the summary of the episode was about Mando going back to save the kid.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda, and kind of getting gripes and questioned about it from not only the Empire but also from the Guild with what is it, Grief Karga?
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice. I really enjoyed. In general, I really enjoyed this episode, and I really liked the plot.
I think it was definitely probably the strongest of all three of the episodes so far.
I would agree.
And
the action was really good. The characters were conflicted. What did you think about length time? This one was also a short one.
To be honest, I've just kind of stopped paying attention to the length. It's not that big of a factor for me. When I get into the episodes, it feels like there's no wasted space. It ends when it should. It's well paced. I don't even look at the time. I sit there and just enjoy it for what it is. So is it longer or shorter than it has been?
It was still like around 30-something minutes.
Okay.
But I think this was the episode. I don't know how I keep on getting more into it. I've gotten used to the pace. This episode was awesome.
Yeah.
I love the action. I love the conflict. I loved how he's just, popping off stormtroopers like, boo! It was good. I really enjoyed the different emotions and the shootout. This episode was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Which makes me really excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series because the person that directed this episode, Deborah Chow, is the showrunner for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
That's right.
So hopefully it has a very similar feel, and the suspense, the pacing is pretty similar. So it's got me very optimistic about that.
Yeah, a lot of channels and podcasts have been talking about that she would be doing the Kenobi series, and even though fans at first were like, who is this person?
Yeah.
And after this episode, people were like, okay, I'm into this. So that's at least something that people could, relate to and just get excited for. This is a good template. As far as new characters for this episode, we still haven't seen, Gina Carano's character? Yeah. We still haven't seen her yet. But we did get a new Mandalorian that, who knows if they'll stick around. But it was this bigger Mandalorian who, we'll call him Big Mando.
Voiced by Jon Favreau.
And he and other Mandalorians come into the forgery. Mm-hmm. And he kind of gives, kind of wants to start a fight with the Pedro Pascal's character. And then they all go, this is the way. And I actually really like that line. Although every time I hear it, I think of Knuckles. Like, do you know the way? The Ugandan Knuckles.
This is the way.
This is the way. So that's what I think of. But he's one of our new characters. I really liked him. Just with the way they put him in a juxtaposition of, at first he's getting onto the Mandalorian. And then towards the end, he's like got the big Gatling gun saving him.
Yeah, he. What was really interesting to me was definitely their conflict. They You can definitely tell that there has been some tension. They keep mentioning the Great Purge and the dying out of their kind, their culture, and that Beskar steel that has been claimed by the Empire that they are slowly trying to take back, kind of like taking back their identity as a culture. And he feels like the Mandalorian has kind of been like a traitor because he's taking that steel from the Empire, kind of like they're supporting him in a way. Um, and one of the most interesting moments to me was they keep talking about not taking off their helmets, not showing their identity, um, just basically being such a central part of their culture. And when the Mandalorian and that other fighter started getting into it, the first thing that Jon Favreau's character did was he grabbed him by the helmet and tried to take it off, just to dishonor him and to shame him.
Dishonor.
It seems like that's one of the biggest ways of like hurting someone in that culture that you can inflict. Which is I don't know. I've really been enjoying delving deeper into the whole Mandalorian culture and the way that these characters interact. It's been really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's one of the parts of the Star Wars lore that is really nice to get peeled back for us, because they are in the games. They are, we know about the Mandalorian Wars. We know about Mandalore a little bit as a planet, and people have done. It's in the Clone Wars series, so this is a really great deep dive into it in the in live action.
Yeah.
So I think this is fascinating for us as fans getting to see this, and I really do like it being post Empire, because we got a little bit of in the Clone Wars. Now we're seeing what they are after the purge, after all their Beskar steel was taken,
After all the fallout from everything that's happened.
Yeah, so this is going really well, and I love to see how much of the religion, how much of the culture clashes with the character, because it seems like so far the culture is kind of opposite of what bounty hunting is.
Yeah, those two opposing forces, two separate codes completely, where he, in the end, he has to betray not only the bounty hunter's code, but he feels like the Mandalorian code as well, saving this child, and no one fully understands his logic in trying to go back to save this thing that he's already given up once. There's so many different layers to this that, like, the more you think about it, the more you watch it, the more we get into the series, the deeper and the more meaningful everything seems to get. And that you can tell that, like, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who are both so engulfed in the Star Wars lore, you can tell that I know we've talked about this before, but how deeply they care about the series and the content and how meaningful they want to make it for the fans.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think I said it before, but again, I agree. This is the best episode, and I think from here things get much better. So, going forward with our review, what are your thoughts on the episode just in general?
So the main kind of idea that seemed to flow throughout the whole episode was this idea of identity and who the Mandalorian sees himself as, who other people see him as, like we talked about, following the bounty hunter's code, following the Mandalorian code, and all the different rules and structure that applies to those things. And even at the beginning of the episode, when he turns over the Baby Yoda, the client, Werner Herzog's character, when the Mandalorian starts to question him about what are you going to do with this kid, the remark that he gives to him is like, this isn't part of your code. You're supposed to forget this ever happened once the transaction's been completed. And one of the last things he says is finding a Mandalorian is more difficult than finding the steel, in regard to the Beskar steel that he's given him this fortune of.
Yeah.
And I think that can be taken in two ways. Just one, meaning obviously the Mandalorians are all in hiding. They're not a very prominent culture anymore, but also he's obviously amassed this wealth of Beskar steel, and that was easy for him to get a hold of. But finding a true Mandalorian who latches onto that culture completely, I think, is more difficult to find than the steel. And so it's the Mandalorian questioning who he is. Is he a Mandalorian? Is he a bounty hunter? How much of each kind of culture and code is he going to accept into his new identity that this child is making him question? And we've talked about the Mandalorians trying to remove the helmet, which seems to almost be a part of their religion, is this garb and forms their identity.
It's like cutting off the what is it? The little ponytail you have as a samurai warrior or whatever.
Yeah.
Or in so that's like disgraceful, and then the same thing goes for Game of Thrones with the Dothraki.
Yeah, the
when
braids.
they have their ponytails cut, it's a symbol of just like no, don't do it.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so yeah, that whole idea of just who he is and what he's going to define himself by, it seems like he's taking over more of his identity and not defining himself based on the standards set around him.
Yeah, I really like that conflict as well. For me with this episode, I really loved the arc they already gave the Mandalorian, where we start with episode 1 where he has that blue alien, and he's like, doesn't matter to me, I can bring you in hot or I can bring you in cold.
Yeah.
And now we see him asking about, what about the kid, what's going to happen. And I love, like you brought up with Werner Herzog, just piling on, like, don't mention this at all, just shut up.
Yeah.
Do what you're told, take the money and run. And then he gives him that jab, like, about there are fewer Mandalorians. I also love how they played the part when they forge his armor.
Yeah.
And he comes into the cantina and everyone looks at him and he's just like shining with the nice glimmering armor. And even the guild master's like, Mando, you made me rich, thanks. I love that scene. It's so good. And I love how they'll take a moment. There's no action in it, but I still like that scene. It and you feel the weight of the Mando just being like, what's the next assignment? Give me the next job. And he's like, don't you want to take a vacation? It really makes this character seem more complex. Like, who just doesn't want to take a vacation? Like, it obviously there's something behind him with the flashbacks we saw with him as a foundling. And going on from this scene, I also really like the shootout. I think everyone loved the shootout that happened.
Oh, yeah.
But I liked I want to say, like, when he infiltrates the Empire outpost.
Oh, that stronghold, yeah.
Yeah, that stronghold. This is pretty cool. I mean, the weapon when he puts his fist on the ground and a bunch of missiles come out.
The whistling birds.
Yeah, the whistling birds. That was cool. But I want to say my favorite part was the ending with the Mandalorians coming out of hiding and just attacking all the bounty hunters. I think that was a shining moment of the episode, because now it's going to take us, it feels more like it's not about Pedro Pascal's character. It now opens it up to, it's about him and the Mandalorians in general.
Yeah, which because they've come out of hiding, they mentioned in the show how they have to relocate their colony essentially, which they don't. Their only concern at that point is coming to the aid of the Mandalorian. Just that Mandalorian bond is stronger than the bounty hunters bond, and yeah, I'm curious to see how much of a role, if any, they're going to play in any future episodes, or if that was kind of a one and done, and they're going to relocate into a completely different world that we won't see for a long time. But you can definitely tell at this point it's getting off world. Now we're going to go into a new setting, a new environment for new characters to come in.
Yeah, and that's going to be nice so far. The change and the dynamic between the Mandalorians, like, was it worth it? Was it not worth it? Mm-hmm. What do you have to gain? And that's what I'm excited for with the baby Yoda, is like, what is there to gain from this child? And what other conflicts are coming to place? So I really like how it ended. I really like how it opens that door, and how now the Mandalorians are out of that hiding, because in lore they're supposed to be like insane warriors, and people like, oh my gosh, there's a Mandalorian, like, watch out. Yeah. Now that they're out of hiding and they have to relocate it, I wonder if we see the remnants of the Empire throwing everything that they can, or if they're going to be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah.
So personally, I love the story beats. I liked the palette they used for the show in this episode, where like it starts off, if you notice, like it's daytime and he infiltrates the stronghold, and then it's getting darker and darker, and by the time the Mandalorian's in the shootout, when he's saved by the other uh Mandalorians, it's dusk. It's dark. And so I really liked that, so that they showed like the jetpacks firing off. It was better lighting. So I really liked. I gotta take a sip. Let me get my dry mouth.
Let me cover for you. The color contrast and the lighting, and we've talked about like how qualified that showrunner is, and how excited we are for the Ben Kenobi series, and it just shows that even the little things like that like I hadn't even thought about it like in that way.
Yeah.
But just every aspect seems to have been accounted for, and there's a purpose behind everything.
Absolutely. What did you think about the ending shootout with Grief Karga by the ship?
I thought it was really interesting, because I mean, obviously the Mandalorian had been shown that Beskar steel he kept in his breast pocket there.
Oh yeah.
So when they were in that standoff, when he shoots the freezing chamber to release all the gas to hide himself, obviously he could have shot Grief Karga to kill. Like he could have ended it right there, but he chose that one tiny little spot because he knew that it would protect him and it would just incapacitate him long enough to get off world.
You think so? You thought that was a precise shot? You didn't think it was just a...
Well, no. I mean, he had spent the rest of the episode very meticulously killing the other bounty hunters, sniping them with accuracy, fighting against the stormtroopers to kill. Like, he was not holding back that entire time. And then because of that bond I feel like he had with Grief Karga, he didn't want to kill him. He just wanted to all he wanted was to escape. He didn't want to fight in the beginning in the standoff. He just said, I'm getting on my ship and you're going to let it happen. He easily, I feel like, could have killed him in that moment because he was completely incapacitated. But he made a choice to let him live. And I think that's why they showed him with that Beskar steel in his pocket, because otherwise, I mean, we wouldn't have known that there was anything there to protect him. And they didn't have to give him a reason to stay alive. They didn't have to give that steel into his pocket. He could have just said he made a large bounty off of what the Mandalorian had done. But I feel like it was all intentional to show that, given the opportunity, the Mandalorian isn't a killer necessarily. He's a bounty hunter that has a job, and when killing isn't required, it's not the route he's going to take.
That's very interesting, because I took it away as like he totally shot. I thought it was just a cool story element where it's like, oh, the steel, blah, 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 got it, and he just puts it in. He doesn't say, I'm putting it in my pocket or anything, and then he gets shot. And I thought, like, oh, Grief Karga's dead. And then they pan to him, like, taking out the Beskar steel under his tunic, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I love to see where that character goes next. Like, is he going to team up with the Empire? Is he going to get more of the Bounty Guild? Like, what's going to happen? So, or the Bounty Hunters Guild. So I thought it was shoot to kill, but I do think it's kind of cool how we do have those two different perspectives. Because in your world, you're like, yo, Mando knew what he was doing.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, nah, he's just like, get away from me. Bam, shoot, get out of here. You're done. It's over, son. So, yeah, I think, is there any last thoughts you have?
Yeah, what I think the events of this episode are going to trigger are the rest of the nearby Empire forces coming in. And I think, is it Giancarlo Esposito, his
yes,
character?
He's supposed to be a Moff, a Grand Moff.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of his character is besides, it's Moff something.
Moff Gideon.
Moff Gideon, you're right. So he's supposed to appear in the next episode or two, and he's supposed to be more of an overarching villain. What I think is going to happen is, because he escaped with Baby Yoda, or the Mando escaped with Baby Yoda, that's going to trigger the Empire stepping in, becoming much more heavy-handed in how they handle the situation, and starting to track the Mandalorian. And so I think the scientist who's in the episode is going to have a much bigger role. We're going to see potentially if it's related to the Camino cloning facilities, how the Empire is still having an effect on them. Because it didn't seem like that scientist had wanted to be there. We had seen that interrogation droid in the room with the Doctor and with Baby Yoda, but I think that interrogation droid was more for the Doctor rather than for the Baby Yoda. So I'm curious to see if he's going to cave in anything or if he's going to stand his ground and stand behind the Mandalorian. But I'm very excited to see how these larger forces are going to start consuming the show a bit more, and the threats are obviously going to continue to rise as the series progresses, and we're not even halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is episode 3. We're not halfway there. I'm grabbed in. I'm locked in. I know I said after episode 1, like I didn't, the pacing was a little weird for me, but I was excited. I'm very much, I'm probably twice as excited for the next episode to come out just because of the way that it played out with the Mandalorian and the Guild. And it feels like there's more at stake besides, like, oh, he's doing a job. What's he going to do with this kid? Now his life's at risk. More at risk, if anything. So, and it's in conflict with the Empire. The only difference is it's not a rebellion where it's like, oh, we got to save the people. It's like, no, I got to save this kid and my skin. And it just feels very different. Feels very underworld vibe. And I love this. I'm so excited for these next few episodes, and I can't wait to see what planet we go to next. I very much enjoyed it. I agree with you. This is the best episode, and give me more of that end credit music, son.
That score.
So I'm overall into it.
Yes.
So, all right, everyone. That concludes our review. Positive review for episode 3. Not really any drawbacks. And we'll do this again next week. We're going to, like we said in our podcast, and I think in this episode, we're going to have a review out a lot quicker than the previous few weeks. So we should be doing it a couple days after the episode releases on Friday morning. Yes. So stay tuned for the next episode 4. Mandalorian review. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Bye.